One man's 60-day pilgrimage tanked global gold prices so badly that markets didn't recover for 12 years. That man was African. That empire was Mali. That year was 1324. And what happened next was so economically catastrophic, so geographically vast, and so historically unprecedented that the court of Cairo, the merchants of Fez, and the trade houses of Genoa were still calculating their losses more than a decade later. We have been taught that the medieval world's economic engine ran through Europe. We have been taught that gold, power, and civilizational sophistication belonged to Rome's inheritors. We have been taught, deliberately and persistently, that Africa in the 14th century was peripheral to world history. Every single one of those lessons is a lie. The proof walked through the Sahara on foot, on horseback, on the backs of 60,000 people, carrying so much gold that the very act of generosity became an act of economic warfare. His name was Mansa Musa. And this is the mathematics of the greatest wealth demonstration in human history. To understand what Mansa Musa did in 1324, you have to understand the world he was born into and the empire he inherited. The Mali Empire at its peak stretched across nearly 2 million square kilometers of West Africa, encompassing modern-day Senegal, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mauritania, and significant portions of what is now Nigeria. This was not a collection of villages. This was a fully functioning administrative superpower with a standing army, a bureaucratic class, established trade routes, diplomatic relationships with North African sultanates, and universities that were already centuries old by the time Mansa Musa sat on the throne. The University of Sankor in Timbuktu had been accumulating manuscripts since the 10th century. By the 14th century, the city of Timbuktu alone held a population of between 25,000 and 100,000 people, making it one of the most densely populated urban centers on earth. The Niger River served as the empire's arterial highway, moving salt, copper, cola nuts, cotton, and above all else, gold from the interior mines of Bambouk and Bouré northward to Mediterranean trading partners who would then distribute those resources into European markets. The empire's control over the trans-Saharan gold trade was so complete, so structurally dominant, that historians estimate Mali supplied between 50 and 60% of the entire Old World's gold supply during this period. Let that number settle in your mind. Half of all the gold circulating through Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East in the 1300s came from one empire. One African empire. Musa Keita ascended to the throne of Mali around 1312, becoming the 10th Mansa, a title meaning King of Kings, following the disappearance of his predecessor Abubakar II, who had launched 2 ocean expeditions into the Atlantic and never returned. Musa was not an accidental ruler. He was educated, multilingual, deeply versed in Islamic law, and profoundly strategic. He understood that the Mali Empire's wealth needed a stage. He understood that the Islamic world's most powerful courts in Cairo and Baghdad did not fully comprehend who they were dealing with, and that the Hajj, the sacred pilgrimage to Mecca that every capable Muslim is obligated to make at least once, presented him with a perfect geopolitical theater. So in 1324, he made his preparations. The scale of those preparations is where the story stops being ordinary history and starts becoming something else entirely. Musa assembled a caravan of 60,000 people. Some accounts place the number closer to 80,000. Among them were 12,000 personal servants, each one reportedly wearing Persian silk brocade and Yemeni fabric. He brought 500 enslaved men in his immediate procession, each one carrying a staff of pure gold weighing 6 pounds. He brought 80 camels, each one carrying between 300 and 400 pounds of gold dust. He brought his senior wife Inari Kunate, accompanied by her own retinue of 500 handmaidens. He brought architects, scholars, poets, soldiers, and diplomats. The total weight of gold in that caravan has been estimated at between 10 and 15 tons of raw, refined, and dust-formed gold. In today's valuations, that single caravan carried between $1 and $3 billion worth of gold. And he did not plan to bring it all back. The first economic catastrophe struck Cairo in the summer of 1324. Musa arrived in Egypt with the full weight of his empire on display and immediately began distributing gold to mosques, to the poor, to officials, to merchants who impressed him. He reportedly spent so much gold in Cairo in a matter of weeks that the Egyptian gold market completely destabilized. Contemporary accounts from Egyptian historian al-Makrizi, writing in the early 15th century, describe the crisis explicitly. Al-Makrizi records that the price of gold in Egypt fell so sharply during and after Musa's visit that the Egyptian economy suffered for 12 years. He writes that Musa flooded Cairo with so much gold that the purchasing power of gold currency dropped by as much as 12 to 25% across the region. Consider what that means mathematically. Egypt at this time was the most economically significant crossroads in the known world. Cairo sat at the intersection of Mediterranean trade, Red Sea commerce, and African caravan routes. When gold lost value in Cairo, the ripple effect moved immediately west into Morocco and the Maghreb, north into the merchant cities of the Italian peninsula, and east into the trading networks of the Arabian Peninsula. The city of Fez in Morocco, which served as a key relay point for trans-Saharan gold coming into Mediterranean circulation, experienced its own market disruption within months. Genoese merchants who had calibrated their entire debt financing systems around stable gold valuations found their calculations broken. The gold florin, the gold dinar, the gold-backed credit instruments of medieval European banking houses, all of them were pegged to the assumption that gold supply was controlled and predictable. Musa made it unpredictable. He made it abundant. He made it cheap. And in doing so, he demonstrated something that no European monarch of the 14th century could have achieved even theoretically. He demonstrated that a single African king had more disposable gold wealth than the entire European continent's combined monetary reserves. The Kingdom of France under Philip VI held approximately 350,000 livres in royal treasury at around this period. The Republic of Venice, the most commercially sophisticated state in Europe at the time, managed annual trade revenues estimated at around 300,000 ducats. Musa's caravan carried more than 20 times the liquid gold wealth of the most powerful European states combined, and he was spending it as gift. What has been done to this story since 1324 is not accidental. The deliberate minimization of Mansa Musa's economic impact is one of the clearest examples of historical suppression operating in plain sight. Medieval Arab and North African historians documented the pilgrimage extensively. Al-Makrizi wrote about it. The Moroccan historian Ibn Khaldun, one of the founding figures of sociological historiography, wrote about Musa's wealth in his Muqaddimah. The Egyptian court official Suleiman Ateshi had a personal audience with Musa and recorded the encounter in detail. The Catalan Atlas of 1375, one of the most sophisticated maps produced in medieval Europe, depicts Mansa Musa sitting on a throne holding a golden orb and scepter at the center of Africa with a caption describing him as the richest and most noble king in all the land. This image was circulating in European courts 50 years after the pilgrimage. European mapmakers knew. European merchants knew. European kings knew. The erasure did not happen in 1324. It happened across the following 5 centuries, as the architecture of transatlantic slavery required the intellectual infrastructure of African inferiority. You cannot build a global system designed to extract the labor of African bodies without first extracting the history of African civilization from the world's consciousness. Mansa Musa had to be forgotten because a remembered Mansa Musa was incompatible with the ideology that justified slavery, colonization, and economic extraction. The greatest economic influencer in medieval world history was not European. He was Mandinka.